Join me in welcoming Mr. Nakul Mandan, who's the founder and general partner at Audacious Ventures.
When I first came to the US, I was an associate and the cloud wave was just getting started. Mobile was just getting started. First 4-5 years, I wasn't a partner. I became a principal in 2014. I wish there was a secret sauce. A lot of it comes down to some luck, some hustle, and just applying yourself. But breaking into VC was a little bit of a happenstance for me. All of startup success comes down to high density of amazing people attacking a large market. This was around 2017. Pre-people.ai, I was a thesis-driven investor. I feel this is the most exciting time for me personally as an investor. As a VC, you do need large rising tides and you need to be a partner writing checks at the beginning of that large rising tide to become the legendary VC.
Where we are with sort of AI. Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Jagraj, and today I have me an incredibly interesting guest. This founder of a venture capital fund has made his mark as an Indian immigrant in the VC ecosystem in the Bay Area, from starting as an associate at Battery Ventures to then becoming a general partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners, and to now starting his own fund over the last 5+ years, Audacious Ventures. Join me in welcoming Mr. Nakul Mandan, who's the founder and general partner at Audacious Ventures. Thank you so much, Nakul, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Super excited to be hosting you, Nakul, because very few people with your origin have had the track record that you have. You made a distinct mark in the US venture capital ecosystem, which has originally been dominated by very revered firms, and they've sort of had legacies carried forward, and some of these top tier funds are the ones that maintain legacy, but you've now been a part of legacy with a fund like Lightspeed and also started your own. I want to understand and learn a lot from you today.
Yeah.
And I will start is with that question, like how did you make it in a very competitive venture capital market in the hub of innovation in the world? What has that been like? Tell us the secret sauce.
Yeah, I wish there was a secret sauce. A lot of it comes down to some luck, some hustle, and just applying yourself. I'd say breaking into VC was a little bit of a happenstance for me. So I grew up in Kanpur in India, and go into a little more detail since your audience is Indian.
Yes.
So I grew up in Kanpur, went to IIT Kanpur, and my dad was an entrepreneur throughout his career. So growing up, I wanted to just follow in his footsteps, and I thought that's how careers are. And so I started, I got into investing early on, initially thinking that I'll really do it for only 3-4 years, learn how companies are run, and then start a company. So very early on in Mumbai, I got into my first investing gig in 2006, right at the start of my career, with the plan that I'll do it for 3-4 years. And then what happened is Battery Ventures hired me in Mumbai. And in my very first week, this was the financial crisis going on, they actually let go of the guy who was leading India. So the head of the firm calls me. I'm not exaggerating. I joined on a Monday. On Wednesday, the head of the firm calls me. This is May of 2009, saying, we still want to do India investing, but we can't have a remote office in Mumbai without the senior most guy. So why don't you come here, focus on India from here for 2-3 years, and then once you learned our way of doing things and the team around you has grown more senior, you guys will go back and set up that India office. So I came to the US completely by a stroke of luck. I have no plans for my career to be here. My life plan at the time was I'll do VC for 2 more years, learn how companies run, and then start a company. So I came here in September 2009 on an H-1B visa with that mandate. As soon as I came here, I quickly realized that the Battery India story might not work out. At that time, India didn't have Silicon Valley style businesses. Now the landscape is very different. And so I was like, there's a reason that other guy is already gone. This team is not looking out. I might get fired here.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to get fired. I'm not, again, exaggerating. So in the next 6 months while I was here, I just started volunteering for the US partners at the Battery offices, more thinking, I'm here in Silicon Valley, I might as well maximize my learning. And so in 6 months, when they formally shut down the practice, they were very generous with me and they had liked my work so far. And so they gave me the opportunity to reinvent myself in the US. And at the time, I thought that, hey, maybe I should just go back. But it did feel like the US at the time, market size wise and scale of ambition wise, felt like 100x bigger opportunity. Again, I think India has evolved a lot in the last decade and a half since what we are talking about. Uh, so I just felt like I need to take it and run with it. But it did mean that at the time I was almost taking a 3-4 year hit to my career because if you think about it, went to IIT, I am got into investing early, had 4 years of experience of investing in India, got some exposure to Silicon Valley. If I had gone back to India, I'd be on a very, very fast track with very few people were on.
Yeah.
But here, it was the complete opposite. It was I'd never studied here. I had no network. So effectively, that was a real trade-off, and I took a week to decide. The partners who came to me said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" When they were shutting down India, I told them I need a week because this is a major life decision. Uh, and it was a trade-off, but ultimately I just felt in a career spanning 30, 40 years, I might not regret the 3 years of hit that I take, but I might regret that the scale of the opportunity I forego so might be larger. And so it was this asymmetric upside kind of thing. There was risk, but the upside was asymmetric.
Yeah.
So that is how I started. I think your question is deeper than that as to what it takes from there onwards.
No, but let's go ahead, right? Like, I'd love to get to present day. I mean, with Audacious, like 2 funds in. First one was 90, second one was 150. And you've built this like franchise. What was the sort of inflection point to start your one fund? Maybe let's go there. And then we'll go deeper into one of these aspects, right? The purpose of the next 60 minutes is to decode founder thinking from your lens, institutional building within venture, and get a nuance of the Bay Area ecosystem that Indian founders may not be privy to.
Yeah.
So I think we want to decode that in a deeper level.
Yeah.
But to understand complete context to where you began, which you've already given us, and to where you are, I think will be helpful, and then we'll go deep.
Yeah. So maybe just to connect the dots from there to why I started Audacious.
Yes.
So
Lightspeed habit.
Yeah, I ended up having a great run at Battery after that. So I stayed at Battery for 4 more years, sourced a few companies, got promoted. They even start putting me on some boards to prepare me for the partner or principal role at the time.
Nice. This is 10 to 40.
Yes.
2040.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then around 2013, again, life works in inflection points, right? So, separately when we were talking, you were asking me how did these things happen. So, in 2009, when I first arrived there, I met a guy called Gautam Gupta, who's one of my closest friends there. He was at General Catalyst. He introduces me 6 months later to a guy called Semil Shah, who ended up becoming the founder of Haystack, which is a pretty successful seed firm. At that time, we were introduced to play tennis together. We met for the first time to play tennis. Within 10 minutes, it was clear that he was a much higher level there, but we ended up being friends.
That's amazing.
4 years later or 3 years later, Semil was hosting a happy hour, and I ran into this guy, Bipul Sinha, who at the time was a partner at Lightspeed and was leaving to start Rubrik, which now is a $15-20 billion market cap company. So you kind of you look back at these things. If I hadn't shown at that happy hour, Bipul wouldn't have bet me. And, he was the guy who referred me to Lightspeed. Ravi and Bipul then recruited me. And then I can connect you more dots with how did I meet Michael Greenwich at WorkOS at the seed round, or Oleg Grabinski at People.ai, or Ian Blair at Multiverse. But in the end, it takes a lot of those dots to connect together. And there are lots of random dots that never connect. Yeah. You just don't know which ones will connect, right?
And this only happens here. Like that.
I don't know if it only happens here. I do think Silicon Valley is a very, very special place for this. It is a special place in many different ways. Yeah. I think the density of high quality people is so high here, and there's a little bit of a unidimensionality where you sit in a coffee shop and the conversation next to you is not about dating; it's about hyperscaling or something like that.
You negotiated.
Yeah, you go to a happy hour, you're meeting like-minded people. And so I ended up at Battery, then at Lightspeed for 5-6 years. Ended up doing great with Lightspeed also, and had become kind of one of their senior partners. But then to answer your specific question, I got my green card and the moment of truth was here, which is I've told a story of my life to myself, at least through my 20s and 30s, that one day I'll start a company and it'll be a massively successful thing. And I'll look back at my life and say, I will this and this will live beyond me. That's pretty core to at least the story I told myself. And so for me, like by the time I got my green card and I could have done that, I was a career VC. I'd not planned to be a career VC, but by that time I had no other skill set. Today I have no other skill set. So then I kind of felt like, okay, my entrepreneurial journey has to be on the VC side. Uh, so at some level, it was a very difficult decision because I was senior at Lightspeed and there was like a lot of momentum.
Wow.
At Toronto level, it was a very, very simple decision because wasn't even making a decision then. I made that decision 20 years ago. And so emotionally, it was very simple. Rationally, it was probably tough because rationally, you can compare the two parts and you can say, hey, there's a lot of argument to just stay on and do well there. But emotionally, I just felt like I'm healthy. I've done well in my life. I've broken the structural barriers with which a small town kid can end up being here.
Yeah.
If I can't go for my dreams, then who fucking can? And you have one life. So that's kind of how it all started. So that's how Audacious got started.
That's brilliant. Can you talk us to that further, maybe? Because, Lightspeed, I mean, and for context, multi-billion-dollar fund,
Yeah.
very reputed, one of the best in the valley. You're leading, you're your partner there. You had great wins, portfolios doing really well, multiple badges of honor up your sleeve. How do you sort of rationally weigh out the pros and cons? Like, what was Nakul in 2020 telling him? How does your mind?
Look, it was kind of this I'd say you have to feel compelled about the idea that you're going to pursue. So and we can go into that as to what is Audacious, what's the gap in the market that I believe we can fill in a meaningful way and win in a meaningful way. So there was this ideation around, okay, if I do this, what will I build? Will that keep me excited for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Because things can get, once you start winning, can they become repetitive and boring? And that's not what I want to do. So I think the rational side was more about, there's a path at Lightspeed that I could see very, very clearly. Is there an alternate path that I can see where I feel excited about my daily, days and my work? And I think I came up with some thesis areas, and those have evolved candidly. Nothing just stays the same. But honestly, the actual answer to your question is, I would rationalize both sides. It was the heart. It was the heart that made the decision. I just felt my life will be incomplete if I never do something where I can look back at my career and say, hey, this institution got built because I started it. It would probably just feel incomplete. And so it was.
No, I think that regret minimization framework in light
Exactly.
right? I think that's amazing. And to know that, a person and that stature with all the benefits and, of the societal ladder being in front of you, yet leaving it to pursue your passion and starting an institution is incredible. Let's get to that. I mean, let's get to the Audacious thesis, right? Like you have mentioned that in the past that a lot of VC firms have now become really large and they've become glorified so that managers in a particular asset class. Value add becomes limited to founders. And that's where you are building this extremely lean recruiting first firm that actually supports founders at its core and backs exceptional people, people who do the improbable, right? Talk us to that thesis, perhaps, like the genesis and how far we've come. And then we'll go maybe deeper to the nuance of even what it means to start your own fund, right?
So I'd say there were two aspects that came together to become Audacious, the firm that it is today.
And I love the name.
Yeah, I got the name too. I'm biased.
Yeah.
So two aspects. So one I would say was what you touched on, which is I felt that there are these legendary firms that we all look up to, and I was part of one of them, which are truly, truly good at what they do. The people are ambitious. They hustle every day. They have the brand and they have wins, and they're not lazy as firms. Great firms, but they are today do big, right? These people are managing 30 to 50 to $80 billion. So does a 4 million, 5 million, $7 million check matter? They have the winnability for those checks, of course, but they're just option calls. And you're seeing this play out even more than when I left. Today, these firms are deploying a billion into some of these late stage, LLM companies. There's a $6 million check matter to them. Now, it might not matter to them, but for the founder who's starting, it is everything. Uh, and so, but the thing was that at the seed, the founder and the company is the most fragile. They're still picking these firms because at seed there was the gap I saw, which inspired me, was there's no gold standard seed firm that truly brings the intensity of operations that it takes to win competitive deals, but also combines that with a platform DNA to actually look into the eyes of the entrepreneur and say, we can increase the odds of success for you. I do think there are platform firms, but it's actually very rare. First round seems like the only exception, which is truly a platform firm. After first round, there's no platform firm. And so first thing was that inspired me was all these firms that have become legendary, they build those platforms. And recent Sequoia. So can we build the gold standard seed firm that combines the intensity of operations on deal making with the platform DNA to move the needle? The second thing that inspired me was that as I went through my career at Lightspeed, in early days when I was still a principal, I was becoming a career VC, and there was this thing inside me like, what is my partnership with the founder like? Right? There are other people who build companies, that is their claim to fame. So I really initially started with saying, hey, if a founder partners with Nakul, they should feel that their go-to-market thinking and sophistication level can be increased by me being involved. And so I really became a student of that game. And as I went through that journey, within 1 to 2 years, I realized that actually, even on the go-to-market engine build out, the frameworks are all there for everyone to read. The difficult part is hiring an exceptional team, because there are very, very few, just like there are very, very few exceptional founders, there are very, very few exceptional sales leaders. And those exceptional sales leaders, if you talk to them, they'll say their number one job is to hire amazing sales reps. And so it quickly became a recruiting thing. So during my Lightspeed journey, I think the superpower that I tried to create for myself was, can I become an excellent recruiter for my portfolio companies? And that then became the thesis for Audacious, the second part of the thesis. Okay, we want to build a platform firm at Seed. Where can we move the needle the most? And my conclusion was, all of startup success comes down to high density of amazing people attacking a large market. So then when we invest, we are looking for what we call a force of nature founder attacking a large market. Post investment, we feel the highest impact we can create is in helping them aggregate an amazing team around them. Now, our best founders often have the first 3, 4 engineers identified because they're exceptional, they are resourceful, and all of that. It's the fourth engineer, the fifth engineer, when they say, I need to go outside my network because it's my fourth best engineer that I know better than the global maxima. And Audacious can help you go from those 3 engineers to 15 amazing engineers and the first 2 sales reps and all of that. So that was the second part of the thesis. Can we build a firm that is that truly looks at it as not a check in the box to sell, but truly looks at it and has a belief that we can impact? And so half of our team here is in our recruiters. We've now placed about 100 plus people in our portfolio companies. We don't charge our companies for it. It's solely in the interest of the equity value we already own in those companies. So I can go after story where sometimes we'll refer a candidate, but a third candidate comes through their own network, and our recruiters will say, that person is better, let us help you close that. It's truly aligned with the founder interest, and so far it's worked well.
I love that. I love that. And yesterday when we were catching, you told me that, out of 8 people, there are 4 investment team members and then there are 4 recruiters. I was like, just blown away to hear. Like, that shows true commitment to the cause. And yeah, in a founder's life, if capital, human capital, and, customers are important, you're solving the first 2 extremely well. So I love that thesis. I want to quickly double click on the macro environment, right? If you can give us your vantage point on the US venture market is deep, a lot of founder talent exists, and a lot of capital chases a lot of great founders. So beyond the right to win, which you're defining via, your human capital thesis, how do you sort of compete as a new fund? What is that like? I would love to understand, because again, because the US market is so deep, It'll be interesting to understand your thesis.
Yeah. Look, I think this is the central question for anyone starting a new firm, or actually, to be honest, even if you're a partner at a firm, uh, that what does it take to win? Not win the deal, but win in terms of returns, right? Uh, so I'd say it's a few things. So I'd say first thing is it's a lot of hustle. Uh, it's our competition is smart, our competition is hungry. If I'm sleeping, taking it easy, or sleeping on the wheel and taking it easy, somebody else is hustling. The younger Napple is always around the tip, right? One is it takes a lot of hustle. Second is you need to find some way to aggregate a network around you to have the high quality deal coverage. So that is mission critical. If you don't see the founder, how will you? What is the point of picking and winning? So some element of deal coverage, and that really starts with network coverage.
And you had them doing for you with your past track record.
Yeah, but also like our team here, my partner MZ is exceptional in terms of he was a YC founder himself. He had been at Kleiner Perkins and Gradient. I'd known him for 7 years before I started Audacious. I knew that his network is authentically amazing. And those networks get built because you've invested in those relationships years and years before you actually have go and call that person for a favor or something, right? So one is that. So you need to have some kind of a network to have an unfair advantage on
Which is
getting to people, getting to high quality people early. The next is the skill set of differentiating between good and great, and this is where a lot of execution dies because everybody can hustle. The sophistication of picking between good and great is not easy to internalize. I would even say to you, I arrived here in 2009. I truly understood the difference between good and great of Silicon Valley in 2017. I wish I could say to you, I instantly got it. My career would be better off if I had that. But really, only in 2017, by the time I had enough exposure to good people and great people, by the time I started seeing Bipulson execute the way he was executing on Rubrik, by the time had Oleg Roginsky from People.ai in my portfolio and seeing him navigate a very, very crowded landscape, by the time I had gotten enough exposure to Ravi Mathre's portfolio and some of my other colleagues at Lightspeed, that I was like, this is good, this is great. They're not on the same spectrum. You think that actually it's the same spectrum, it's the same line, and if you keep this one, the 99th percentile person behaves dramatically differently than the 90th percentile person.
That's so nuance. I mean, what is the difference between good and great?
It's a sense of belief in your capabilities. It's a sense of sophistication. Belief comes before action, but the actions have to be sophisticated and tenacious. And I bring both of those points. So tenacity is obviously good, which is determination, not taking the loss as permanent and all of that. But there's a sophistication level also needed to then get up again and then attack it differently next time, right? What are you changing in your next act, or are you just hustling harder this time? So you need to bring substance to conversations to bring that level of, like, the outcome will be different the next time you try because you tried something different and with more substance, right? Why will somebody like you want a favor from some of these people that you've been interviewing on this trip, Pepple Sinha or Mohit from Cohesity and people like that, Dheeraj Pandey? These are very sophisticated people. They won't give 15 minutes of their time if they believe that, hey, this is not a needle in it, right? So sophistication matters. So I'd say the difference between good and great is often that the good is more about hustle and good enough communication skills and good enough smarts, and the great kind of takes it to the next level in a meaningful way. I think it's probably the easiest example I'll give it in sport. You could say that, let's say, Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer are in the, let's say, when they were playing, top three.
Right.
The fourth ranked player is just not in the same league. It is not 1, 2, 3, 4. It is 1, 2, 3 and fucking on a different planet the fourth person is playing, and they are all playing on a different planet.
Correct.
Right? It's not the same line. So the line just inflects very aggressively, and the further up you go, your expectation from everyone starts changing. So I would say, so just to go back, I would say the network is important, but the ability to differentiate between good and great, and then ability to earn the right to work with them, which means that now, okay, you got access to that person's time, but will they give you a part of their cap table when they have many options? Those are the people who have more options. So then you need to bring something to the table in terms of substance. This goes back to what I was saying earlier as to it, at least for me, the two superpowers that I kind of tried to bring together were go to market engine build out and recruiting an amazing team. And so even today I say to founders like, hey, we have these two superpowers. There are other people who are better than us on other things, but on these two things we are very, very, very good, and then we have to compete. Right? So I think you kind of bring all of these together. But again, I would say everybody understands sourcing, picking, winning, helping. This is a common phrase.
Yeah.
The difference is not knowing this. The difference is not knowing the tactics. It's a sophistication level that you can bring every day to this.
No, I love that. I think this is a great framework. The hustle, the network effects, the ability to work and the right to work with some of these incredible founders, and then aligning that with the good to great sort of framework. I'm curious to understand. You went at Battery, you were doing growth. At Lightspeed, you then started doing AS. Now you're at further earlier in the journey. How has that transition been? How has your mental model sort of evolved from an investing lens purely because of stage of investing transition?
You know, I love this question and hate this question. I tell you why. Because it somehow this perception exists.
Okay.
But actually, when I was at Battery, I was first of all not a partner at Battery, but associate as a VP. I did 6 cents at 4.5 or 5 post valuation.
Please
So-
provide the record if I'm not
Yeah,
right.
yeah, no, but I hear you that this is the perception. But my point is, so I did the inside at 16 post, 6 cents at 5 post, and other things like that. And then at Lightspeed, WorkOS seed run when it was just a guy in the deck, people.ai when it was just 5 people, Multiverse when it was 10 people. All of these were seed runs. All that said, the reason it was all early, the reason was that at some point I internalized that I'm becoming a career VC and I wanted to start my own firm regardless. And so even though the firms were becoming very growth oriented, I stayed on early because, so even at Battery, I was doing early and growth. I did a couple of growth investments there, but mostly early. At Lightspeed, I did almost like of the 14 investments I made, 11 was seed or series A, I think. But part of that was intentionality because I knew eventually I wanted to do my own thing and I liked early and all of that.
Nice.
So it hasn't been that different. Of course, starting a new firm, I think feels very, very different now that I've done it. Sure, it's not for the faint of heart, I would say.
Yeah.
And there have to be adjustments made when you're only doing seed and series A, because in seed and series A, there's a second bite to the apple. At seed, you look at a founder, you like them, you like the market, but it's too early. You can say, hey, I can wait for the A. If you're running a seed firm, there's no second bite. Right?
I don't have option.
Yeah. So I think there's some adjustment that we've had to do here on that, or I've had to do in my mental models.
Good. The larger question also being that, I was just curious to understand if growth investing at all impacts your framework in the early stages. There's not a lot of people have the full spectrum approach.
Yeah.
Like usually people end up sticking to a particular stage. Even if you had done that across sort of your career in investing, do you have a framework on whether or not it helps to have growth models at early, or does it help to have like an early model at growth? Like what's your framework that governs sort of thinking around stages?
I'd say you do benefit from having seen this full spectrum for multiple reasons. One is that you want to know how future investors will look at this company, and accordingly at least present that viewpoint to your portfolio founders so they are not rudely awakened when they go on at series B or C. So one is like direction of the company, like what will a later stage investor might value efficiency of growth was much more than the series A investor, and dramatically more than a seed investor, right? Um, so I think there's some element of that. There's some element of what great scale looks like when you've seen late stage investing happen. I think you also have a realization as to what late stage greatness looks like, because when you're investing at seed, ultimately the company has to grow into that, and its business model, its defensibility, or over time, like accumulated advantages, a phrase I prefer now over defensibility, uh, but the founder scalability also. So I would say it informs me. Uh, but I've also learned that at the earliest stages, the other piece is the con is that if you think too much like a growth investor,
Having it for too much.
you're looking for too much and it's not available to see. And you have to dream the dream. Late stage investors can afford to say how much of the dream has become reality in the last 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. We can't. So then the question is, we have to go back in the founder's journey, because the company doesn't have a journey before us, and extrapolate that curve. Uh, so that is the late stage lens can stop somewhere. But I think it has its benefits, it has its cons.
I'd love to maybe start with the portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Maybe across the last 10, 15 years and more of your investing career, if you can ponder upon select companies that you've been a part of, what were you thinking at the time? This is to give a vantage point to the sort of listeners as to how you've gone about a specific thing. And it could be both about like something, maybe there was a loss as well, something that you missed, and the wins that you had plenty, right? Like being said, if you did at 16, it exited at 1.1, if it's wrong. So that's incredible. So would love to hear your frameworks and maybe just stories around that, and then we go into the other aspects.
Yeah. So I'll give you three, and then you tell me which ones you want to die. So let's start with people.ai, because I think that in my mind is an inflection moment for me. So I say that because this was around 2017. Pre people.ai, I was a thesis driven investor. I would come up with thesis areas. I would try to scout companies. Of course, I would look at other things, but I would try to scout for companies in those areas, in plus minus, and sometimes those theses were not the sectors, but broader ways of company mechanics and stuff. And on the morning of my first meeting with Oleg at people.ai, if somebody had said that your next investment is going to be in the sales and marketing space, I'd have said absolutely not. It's too crowded. I don't want to do it. And then I met him, and that's another connecting the dots. Back when I was trying to learn about sales and marketing, I'd cold emailed a bunch of sales and marketing leaders. Two of them introduced me, and so I cold LinkedIn'd a few sales and marketing leaders just to get their brains download on sales and marketing playbooks. 4 years later, those two people separately, independently introduced me to Oleg. Anyway, so I meet Oleg, and I just feel this force of nature energy about him. Today I use the word force of nature a lot. That was the first time I personally felt it, where it was just like this insane energy, and you could feel like this person is going to do amazing things in their life. And so I just kept meeting him, and I kept tracking this. He was just getting into YC. And every deal dynamic is so different. WorkOS, which I'll come to later, I met him on a Saturday. On Monday night, I'd made the offer. And Saturday night, I'd kind of made up my mind already. People.ai, it took me 3 months. So I met him. I did love his initial idea, but I loved him. Kept meeting him. His idea kept evolving. He was going through YC. Then brought him in to meet the Lightspeed partnership, I think 2 weeks before YC demo day. He made the offer 1 week before YC demo day. He wanted to go through demo day, and YC wanted him to go through demo day. By the time demo day happened, he had 5-6 other offers. We kept also playing in an aggressive way, and there were some very competitive offers at the time. And candidly, I was early enough in my journey. I wasn't senior enough. I'd just become a partner, but I was a young partner at the time. I would say like we beat like at least one firm that was potentially a stronger brand, and definitely the partner there was much more senior to me. And I still tell people sometimes when we talk about how to win competitive deals that so like I did so many things to win that deal. Seven, I'd say if I do all those things again on that same situation, my guess is 7 times out of 10, I'll lose that deal, and 3 times out of 10, I'll win that deal. But because I created an echo chamber around him who just kept telling, go with Nakul, go with Nakul, go with Nakul. I did like multiple whiteboarding sessions with him. I created a financial model which looked more like an operating plan for him, that how his next 12 to 18 months looks like, which we did on the whiteboard. And he felt that, okay, this is how working with Nakul will look like, all of that. And my point on the 7 versus 3 out of 10 was a prior version of Nakul, 2 years before that, would not have done all those things and would have given himself half a chance to win a deal that competitive. But by the time I met Oleg, I had become much more intentional and tenacious about winning competitive deals. I gave myself 3. And in this universe, which we are sitting in, those 3 out of 10 played out, right? And so you don't just go overnight from a junior partner to winning all the deals. You slowly increase your odds of success. But the increasing of the odds of success on those competitive deals happens because you make a lot of actions happen, including in how your stance changes with the founders, how your body language changes, how your confidence changes, and they can see all of that. If they see that, then they believe more in you also. And so, but your own belief in winning that competitive deal needs to come through, but the actions need to come through, and the echo chamber around the founder should all say, go with this person. So that, I would say, was an inflection point deal for 2 reasons. One is I went from, in that subsequent year, seeing him operate, I went from being a thesis driven investor to a people first investor. The light bulb moment happened for me, which is my job as a VC is not to come up with the best ideas. My job as a VC is to find the forces of nature who can will a durable company into existence, which is extremely fucking hard. And my job is to find those very, very few people who can do that. That changed. The second thing that changed for me and why it's an inflection point is my personal belief in my winnability on a very competitive deal dramatically went up. After that, I walk into every meeting feeling I have the right to win. This is mine to lose. That body language changes. It actually increases your odds of success. So I'd say that one was very different, very meaningful for me. I think then there was Multiverse, which actually was interesting in the sense that I did the seed. Actually, a colleague of mine at Lightspeed sourced it, but I already had a thesis in that area. So when it came in to Lightspeed system, it naturally was routed towards me. The company was based in London. Ian Blair is the CEO. I actually couldn't travel to London because of some technicality around visa. I think I was waiting for my green card or some visa renewal, so I couldn't travel outside the US for the time being for paper. So we did just back-to-back Zooms every day. This is a pre-COVID time. Like, may have been the first remote deal to have gotten done. Right, where it's a purely Zoom-based decision. 2018. Okay, so
This is an education. Okay.
at the time, it was a marketplace where 18-year-olds would skip college to go and work at Google, Pepsi, McKinsey for a year, where they would get trained on the 50, but 4 days they would work for a boss. So it was kind of an apprenticeship model as a replacement, as what he would call it, as a outstanding alternative to college education. Because his view was college is broken, it's not producing skills, it's just producing pedigrees. And so but over time it has become even more of a learning platform, corporate learning platform. And today the company, I mean, they do $300 million in bookings this year, right? So anyway, so it's a pretty successful one. So that one was interesting because I think it was very clear. It was an extension of what I'd already become, where Ian's vision for the business was extremely clear, but he was translating that vision and the storytelling of the larger than life narrative into how he will act in the next 12 to 18 months. And I got pretty convinced even over Zooms. All of that said, why it was an inflection moment again for my career was the company, I did the investment, the company went from 1 to 4, 4 to 11, I think. And it was growing nicely, clearly, and it had raised a Series A after my seed investment. but I just feel like there's something missing. Like, why is it not growing faster? It's a completely N of one company. And so I would keep trying to give them advice on sales and marketing, but something wasn't fully clicking on supercharging the growth. And then, I sourced a guy called Jeremy Duggan, who was an absolute legend in the sales and marketing ecosystem in London, who ended up becoming the president of this company. And it was a very heavily fought recruit. Like, he was being very sought out. Like, he had an offer from $1 billion company. We were only valued at 66 million. We won that. Lots of tactics went into winning him. But what happened is, in the subsequent years, the company went from 11 to 38 and 38 million to 100 million in revenue. And being in those board meetings and seeing him execute was the second light bulb moment for me, which is, what is better than my advice is if I can find 10 Jeremy Duggans and just get them in my portfolio. So that kind of, those two as a combo became my journey of Audacious, which is find forces of nature, help them recruit, get out of their way. Of course, I'm exaggerating to oversimplify. Of course, our advice is available for people, but I do believe if there's no force of nature found at the center of it, my advice is useless. If they can't aggregate an amazing team, my advice is still useless. If those two things happen, maybe it will be 5% useful, maybe. So that's how it became. So those two were pretty inflection point moments.
Amazing.
And I think Workhorse was another one, which I think at some level is similar, which is I met Michael Krenich on the Saturday. It was just him and a memo or a day. I don't even remember. Two people. Actually, Oleg from people.ai pinged me on Thursday or Friday. Said, hey, you should meet this guy. And then another person pinged me. And both people pinged me on the same days. I was like, okay, I'll just meet on Saturday if two high quality people are pinging me about it. So I met him on the Saturday. It was a 1 hour meeting at Side Class Coffee here, like a few blocks through here. We ended up hanging for 2.5 hours there. And I was like, this guy's a killer. And, he already had a startup before that. He had been like, there was some breakup there that he had a lot of chip on his shoulder to go even bigger this time. He was obsessed with product and distribution. Very, very sophisticated guy. Brought him in on Monday to meet my partner Ravi, who's the founder of Lightspeed. We walked out of the meeting and both of us, yeah, we should just do it. Made the offer on Monday night, like half an hour, 1 hour after that meeting ended. They became competitive over the next 3-4 days, and we did it. I sometimes still can't believe, because this is 2019, so the market hadn't gotten to the frothiness of today, but it was still getting there. It wasn't 2014 either. I led that round at 12 post. I still can't believe I got a guy like Michael like that. Like, it's just insane. Like, the level of sophistication of Michael Greenwich, unfucking believable. And now Workhorse is a complete like juggernaut. It's growing super fast.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I think this contextualizes so much. Thank you for sharing in so much detail. I think this is like, this mini section was a masterclass in like picking, showcasing like here hustle to win, and then knowing what clearly you stand for. I love the simplification. It is as clear as day, and I think very, very important for any investor or even like founder watching. This is incredible. I want to get to now maybe the shifts, right? So we understand that you're a force of nature, founder first, investor. Help us define that, right? Like you mentioned in many aspects, and you also have a great blog that I only read yesterday. Yeah, I shouldn't have come across earlier in my life. But put us to context, because I think so much of venture, and I'm also learning this on the go, is just like identifying gold before it's evident, is how I put it. You have a framework to define these force of nature founders. What does that look like? And I'd love to also understand maybe with the nuance that how have you seen founder talent mature in the valley? There's a lot of that from India's vantage point is happening, right? So if the person listening to you right now is a young or a senior operator in India, thinking of starting their company, what are things they need to keep in mind as they start their journey?
Yeah.
This can be a template for that. knowing very well that the Bay Area ecosystem is more mature and there is more depth here. So I think I would love to understand
Yeah.
have a comprehensive answer on this.
Yeah. So I'll start with maybe one small tweak I'd say is, unfortunately, there's no formula. If there was a formula, we would all do it and we'd all be winning a lot more. And or at least I wish I had the formula. I don't. Maybe others have. But my basic philosophy I'll share, which I've shared online, and so some of this might be repetitive to some people who know of us.
No, we'll tag the blog as well as you speak so that some people can dig it up. But with that context and you're sharing it in live would be amazing.
Yeah. So our core belief is that startup success is an improbable outcome, which means we need people capable of improbable outcomes. The reason we use that phrasing here is that you diligence me, somebody diligences you, and people will always say good things. Good guy, yeah, very smart, hustles a lot, yeah, he is great and all of that. But you start asking pointed questions around assessing their answers around pointed questions of is this person capable of improbable outcomes? It makes the whole discussion assessment very pointed. So that's why we use it, because it allows us to go deeper and really separate to the earlier point good versus great. We hear too many good things about everyone.
Yeah.
You really need exceptionality.
Right.
And so our philosophy is startup success is an improbable outcome. We need people capable of improbable outcome. We call them forces of nature. I've broken it down into 5 things that I look for. High IQ. Company building is a multi-variable problem. Nobody else can train your IQ. You need high IQ to be able to hold those variables amorphously in your head and power forward, because there's no perfect data even for the founder. Extreme ambition. What I mean by that is, look, everybody's ambitious here in Silicon Valley. But there are some people, if they have a $200, $300 million company exit, they're good. They're happy. They feel good. And of course, it is a very, very big win. How many people in the history of humanity have done that? But we all meet some people where you know that this person is just not going to be satisfied. Maybe it's because their mission is still incomplete, because they're mission driven, or maybe because they're just athletes who like to win. Winning is more important than the number for them, right? And so obviously the extreme example of this is Elon Musk, right? The guy sold a company, Zip2, then he sold PayPal. Most people would say, great. He put it all again on the field, almost went bankrupt while chasing Tesla, as in chasing the destinies of Tesla, SpaceX, and all other things. Now he's still doing Neuralink and X. So it's just insane. And he's the extreme example. But extreme ambition is necessary for at least what we are chasing as a VC firm. Third is what we call ability to make people believe. And we specifically phrase it that way because there are lots of people with good communication skills, but startup success is so improbable that you need to go into rooms and make people believe, right? And this is probably when we'll touch on this later between the US and the Indian founder. I'd probably encourage Indian founders to think more about storytelling and how can they paint a larger than life narrative in a way that the other person sees the magic can happen or sees the dream is possible. But ability to make people believe is something we look for. Fourth is grit factor. No matter how good you are, you will have some very dark days. And on those days, some people wake up and say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to make this happen. And the fifth is urgency. Simply put, slow people don't win. And so you need urgency that is inherent in you. Now, I wish there was a formula. I wish it was like check, all 5 boxes, we do it, otherwise not. It's not like that. You meet a person, they have a spike on 3 of those things. 4th thing, you feel like, hey, maybe this part could be better. But so that's where you make qualitative calls, right? And also, by the way, you can get misled. So the worst combo, by the way, is high IQ and ability to make people believe, but the other things are missing, or an authentic missionism. Why? Because they can fool you in the meeting.
Right.
All of us all of us make these mistakes where somebody's storytelling is so good that you believe the rest of it is also true, and it might not be, and you see it in the following months and years. So there's no formula. We misread signals.
Yeah.
But this is how we basically assess things.
This is amazing. I think very, very comprehensive framework. I'm curious to understand how do you test for some of this beyond conversing with somebody? And you mentioned like referencing, etc. But is there a foolproof method? Because as you said, right, like in 2 hours, you can get many false positives as well. How do you avoid false positives in this framework? You can never be right. Like, I mean, so identifying like a true positive will only be like very diverse, dynamic. But what is the false positive in some of this, and how do you like test for it? Like, what do you do beyond meetings? Is there a tactical approach to spending more time, energy, talking to like past employers? What is this that look like?
Yeah, we focus, or at least my personal belief is every VC thinks they're a great people reader, and if all of us think we are, so maybe most of us are not, right? And so, of course, there's some element of qualitative judgment that's happening every second of the interaction, right? Their body language, their words, the way they're expressing ideas, the way. I think the most the biggest signal happens in the conversation, not in the pitch deck, but in the back and forth on some specific aspect of the business. It could be pricing model, distribution, or some element of product market fit, where the back and forth gives you a sense of the depth of the person's thinking. Why? Because look, let's say I disagree. I meet a seed state founder. I disagree with them on some aspect. They could be wrong, or I could be wrong. I don't know either. And if I'm wrong, then I'm making a wrong decision potentially, right? In debating guy. So I think I trust more the quality of the debate than the actual belief. Of course, there are some things which I might be very adamant on that, hey, this won't work.
Right.
Again, I've been right or wrong many times on both sides. Probably more wrong than right in VC. But at least for me, IQ, ability to make people believe in some of those things are more about
The back.
the back and forth and the quality of the conversation. The crit factor, the urgency level, you can have some read, but ultimately I rely on back channel references, because better than my assessment will be people who actually work with him. We try to do as many back channel references as possible at around them, like not just their boss, their co-founder, they had already started a company, their people who reported to them. So we try to do as much as possible. Thankfully, between our teams composition, we're kind of 1 degree removed from almost everyone in Silicon Valley, so we have access. And if we don't, we can just cold email someone, and we have ability to convert that. So we do a lot of back channel references, I'd say.
That's amazing.
But we make mistakes, and we try to minimize those mistakes.
Yeah. No, but this is very, very helpful. And just a final build on the founder piece, is there a particular persona of founders that you're more attracted to the others? Because there's this narrative that, okay, second-time founders or failed founders or senior operators or, exited founders. It could be many of these things. Do you gravitate specifically, or as a firm, do you have a thought process on where talent is headed, especially as we go through this? And we'll talk separately about AI. But in your years of experience, have you seen any commonality patterns across personas of founders that usually win and had large outcomes?
This is a billions of dollars question. Because founder assessment is everything.
Yeah.
And but there's also a VC founder fit element to this whole game,
Of course, yeah.
which is my ability to assess and quality, and my ability to win the founders' hearts and mind. Could be the limiting factor, right? And so I'll tell you, like, I do believe that with AI, there are AI native founders who are just fundamentally younger,
Or deeply technical.
deeply technical. Is a common denominator, I would say, at this point. But I would say who are fundamentally much younger. But the ability to back channel them is a limiting factor. If you're straight out of college or you dropped out of college, who are you back channeling with? Kids? So my personal biases lead me more often to second time founders or execs or the group of people from 27 to, let's say, 40 in age, something like that, right? But I'm aware that might mean that I could run into the next Mark Zuckerberg and not even know. And that would be the biggest mistake of all time, to do that kind of a thing, right? So you kind of try to always check yourself. But to answer your question, I'd probably say uh, ability to connect with the founder and ability to get excited based on some work you do, I naturally tend towards some experience because I do want to back channel the founder a little bit or see a body of work that I feel compelled, not just good. So I need a body of work. The more the body of the work is, the better for me.
Got it. So this is super helpful. I think thank you so much for sharing. This clarifies a lot in founder thinking. Any nuance on how Silicon Valley founders are perhaps different from India? Anything specifically that we can learn purely by like a talent dense ecosystem that the Bay Area is versus like where India is?
I would say, so I'll take this section of the question on some with a pinch of salt because I've also been removed from the Indian ecosystem for 50 years. So some of this might be not fully accurate of the ground reality. But I'd say my read is uh, there's a product and design instinct here that is better on usability of the product, which I think could be better. In India, I think shipping velocity is great, engineering talent is there, but there's a sense of like aesthetic taste on the product that could be better on the Indian founder side. Uh, I think there's a larger than life storytelling that again Indian founders actually have great communication skills. I mean, you and I brought up in school systems where debate and English and all of that was good.
Yeah.
But there's a larger than life storytelling that can be told that I think is trained in the ecosystem here. I think there's an element of body language that the best founders here, they inherently believe they'll win the entire world. That honestly, and so my most macro point here, by the way, would be I personally believe that Indian founders are as capable as any founders in the world. It's the what Silicon Valley has is the depth of engineering talent, capital, uh, exec talent to scale systems once a company has product market fit, and the market size. That combo of market size of US as the most dominant market, software market release, that combo leads to more structural advantages here then I don't think it's so much like look I, many Indian immigrants have done well here. Why do they do well here? They're the same people. So I actually personally think it's just the depth of engineering talent, storytelling capabilities exec that is here. So I think some of it could be just getting exposure and then still building from India.
Yeah.
And I think there are programs that are beginning to happen in that direction where you just get exposure to Silicon Valley thinking. And by the way, what I'm saying is this is true about Silicon Valley and New York, maybe not even the rest of the US, where people here believe they'll conquer the world. I don't see that in the rest of the US either. So I think getting some exposure to New York and the Bay Area thinking and storytelling capabilities and design instincts and also exec talent that scales systems of sales, engineering, marketing, that would be good. But really, the thing that India probably needs to solve is the structural problem of growth capital is missing. There's a lot of early stage capital, growth capital is missing. There's no M&A landscape. So M&A landscape doesn't create enough liquidity for that, cycle to fully complete. Those are structural challenges.
Yeah, and depth of market.
But I think with AI, everything is changing. And the reason is that fundamentally, the people who will win going forward are AI native talent. And so then one could argue that, yes, the Bay Area might have some advantage, but the 40 years of advantage might go down to 2 years of advantage in terms of AI native talent, right?
Yeah.
Even people like me who are not AI native VC, let's say I'm talking against my own self here, need to reinvent ourselves. So then what's the difference between me and somebody in India, right? And so I think there's a once in a generation, once in a lifetime opportunity where ecosystems can actually catch up because now this AI native winning will happen on founders and VC side. And so anybody can catch up if they get that exposure aggressively. And also it's the other thing that's changing for India is that historically one of the constraints for India is that the software markets, India doesn't buy that much software, right? But with AI, the bigger opportunity is in replacing knowledge working labor with software. and India has knowledge working spend. So now the TAMs in India might actually be comparable.
Yeah.
And worthwhile to build native companies and then grow elsewhere. So it is changing, and it is a big opportunity to bring that founding talent that existed and defeat the structural barriers or move beyond the structural barriers that existed.
Absolutely. No, this is amazing. I think, again, super comprehensive, nuanced, and tactically strong approach. And I mean, in my brief experience of how I study venture, I think similar observation, just market size. And I can just societally, like, we do not see as much of the ecosystem. Like, we forget sometimes that the US is a 50, 60 year sort of venture market, and India's maybe 15, 20 years. I think that's something. But this is great. Let's now maybe talk about AI and largely maybe also the macro point of view, observing other tectonic sort of trends or shifts within sort of the venture market, right? So you started investing in 2009, which means you've seen cloud. You saw the maybe crypto wave, right? You've seen through these waves. This one, of course, feels more real tectonic in the world, which is the AI wave. Maybe if you can share thoughts around how each of these waves have impacted your thought process on investing. I mean, you've clarified already, you are founder first, but just how does it impact your thinking? What has been the observation like? So I'd love to understand that. And then maybe specifically talk about where we are with sort of AI and what are the things you are seeing from an on-ground reality. I would love that. So maybe a two-sided question, but one is just on trends, right? Like cloud, so internet, mobile, cloud, clean tech, crypto, now AI. If you can cover that, and then AI.
Yes. So I'd say, yeah, there's a learning curve here. When I first came to the US, I was an associate, and the cloud wave had already, or was just getting started. Mobile was just getting started, and so first 4 5 years, I wasn't a partner, right? I became a principal in 2014. So I would say, just to put this in context, I feel this is the most exciting time for me personally as an investor, because as a VC, you do need large rising tides, and you need to be a partner writing checks at the beginning of that large rising tide to become the legendary VC. The legendary VCs we all admire were GPs at the start of that last rising tide. Right,
internet wave.
With the internet wave was start, because you do need that. How good you are, you're relying on that rising tides and amazing founders. So by the time I became a GP and started, and as I said, like I really understood the game in 2017, it was already like the cloud wave was long. And so I'm pretty excited. I think this is, in some ways, like I feel like personally, I feel this is my decade. I think what the thing that informs me about this is in 2009, 10, 11, people were completely underestimating the size of the eventual sizes of SaaS companies and cloud adoption. And so now I feel like that makes me even more red pilled about AI. Like, dreaming the dream is so much more important. So like one of my blog posts I wrote, thoughts that inform me, and there was one bullet point I wrote that I believe that doing market sizing can be a misleading exercise in venture.
Yeah.
Because, the things that just scale are often the little bit of a French thing, a new thing, and then they just create a massive market, and there was no competition because they were doing the French thing, right? And so I think the biggest information the thing I'm gleaning from that being present in those last things, like crypto. When Bitcoin was $100, $150, $300, there were some people at the edge who would say one day it'll be 30,000, 40,000, and
But nobody believed that.
very, very few people believed them. 150 to 30,000 is a ridiculous number to think about, right? Today it's what, $100,000, and people are now saying people just underestimate. Bill Gates has this quote like, people overestimate what's happening in 5 years or 10 years and underestimate, or something like that, right? And that is the thing that is informing me right now, which is I am red-pilled that in 10 years, we are going to be living in the science fiction future. We probably already are. We just don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But in 10 years, it'll be just a completely different life. And we have this opportunity to invest in those life-changing companies right now. Yeah. So, and they will not look they don't come with the label of I'm the winner and I'm the loser. So we have to dream the dream. Uh, and I'm thinking less of market size and more like which are the founders who will navigate. The one more thing I'd probably say, which is probably the most important nowadays, is that tech cycles have become shorter.
Right.
Meaning, uh, tech is evolving so fast that you need to bet on a founder who can navigate tricky waters in evolving tech cycles. Product market fit has to be revisited every 2 years. You played something right, but then all the landscape around AI evolved. You need to get the next thing right within 2 years, not in 10 years. And that is changing everything. And I would say that for me makes the two aspects of founder quality and overall market size more important than the specifics of the idea when I invest.
Sure. Got it. So that's amazing. And very, very like important to get. It's crazy that 2 years before, if you were doing this podcast, I would have to manually go through all of your podcasts, really read up on everything. But yesterday I did a deep research prompt. I had everything to know about you.
Yeah.
I read it, and that was my homework.
Yeah.
So I mean, already so much is happening. Um, if on a tactical level, from the investments you already made with Audacious, you had maybe advice for founders or directional thinking around these are interesting spaces within frontier tech, AI, etc. What would you say? Because again, if founders are watching you and maybe thinking that, hey, Nakul, can you lend me things that I should build in today? And I know there's no cookie cutter approach to building a company, but directionally, what are spaces that excite you, or what are spaces within the portfolio that you've already taken bets on? That could be directional, strong principles for founder back home.
I think this is not a unique thesis that I have, but every single knowledge working profession could become 10x more productive, right? And so what's changing is that earlier market size was determined by software automation spend. So let's say, I'll give you a real example. So we have a company called thesis in our portfolio. It's an AI recruit agent. Historically, recruiting was a bad market for software because even though 250 billion or 300 billion dollars is spent on recruiting every year in the US, only about $5 billion of that is spent on software automation, ATSs and stuff. So people are like, hey, this is not a big market. But there's 245 or 295 billion that's getting spent on humans, right? With AI, actually, that becomes the TAM to attack. So another great example is Harvey. Historically, legal was a bad market. Nobody invested in legal tech. Now it's a great market suddenly, right? The reason is the market. So fundamentally, I think the way I would answer that question is there's labor spend across the economy, and let's start with knowledge working since that's the easiest for AI as it exists today. Although I think even that will change with multimodal AI, visual AI, and stuff. But uh, what are the jobs where the maximum labor spend is happening? And that's where you could go beyond the obvious categories of code gen and stuff like that, right? Uh, so CPAs, right? So I think the opportunity is across the board and very abundant. Uh, I think the challenge is not that the opportunity is not visible. Like everything I just said might be very obvious to everyone. It's every subcategory now has 17 players, right? So in legal, there are like 15 players.
Yeah.
I'm sure in every subcategory in my portfolio has many competitors. So how do you compete? How do you win in a hyper competitive market? So I think distribution muscle is becoming very important. Probably even more important than ever before now. It has always been important, so feels again odd to say it. Uh, but I think founders need to find velocity faster. And I think the reason is if you don't find velocity, not only will somebody else find velocity in your market, and the definition of velocity has changed in the last 2 years. Look at some of the companies growing, how fast they're growing, right? Yeah. So used to be, if you go from 0 to 1 to 4, you're a fundable business. I would say that is an unfundable business in today's times by a top tier VC. You go from 0 to 1 and 1 to 4, that will be a very hard series B raise. Maybe you didn't even raise the, because in that same week, somebody else pitched the VC 0 to 3.5, 3.5 going to 27. Okay, I'd rather pay up for this than this. So when I'm sitting down with our founders these days, it's not only important to build a robust product, because of course, otherwise you can grow and churn can happen, but finding velocity in distribution and sustainable velocity is mission critical. You don't have that, it's not going to happen anymore. Or at least fundability will not come. And that can become a self-fulfilling thing also.
Right.
The more, if you have many competitors, somebody else can outspend you on engineering, better product, and accordingly better distribution. Uh, that's amazing. So I'd probably answer your question differently, which is it's not about the opportunities are more visible.
Challenges.
Bring the intensity on distribution.
That's amazing. I think again, very, very helpful, nuanced, and tactically helpful. Within the circle, I think we've covered a bunch of things as to how you invest, what are the wins, how you look at founders, spaces. Now let's get to the parts of venture that usually don't get the spoken about, right? And this is about building an institution. So one is, of course, you shared this is the right to win. This is what you stand for. This is the portfolio. This is the space. What is the challenge to just institutionalizing? Like, how do you look at venture talent that you are sort of partnering with, getting people on board? What is the LP side? I mean, the idea is again to build empathy for the side of venture that doesn't not get spoken of. So, to the extent like you can share, what has that journey been like to institutionally set something up, and what are the nuances?
Yeah. So I think there's a multidimensional problem here again, right? So you need to raise the capital. You need the capital raising is again in itself multidimensional. What is your background that gives you what kind of investing where you have an unfair advantage? Can you tell that story to institutional LPs who have many, many options? And in fact, these days there are many, many, many options on funds, right? Like we feel inundated by founder pitches. I think LPs feel inundated by VC pitches. So how can you stand out and say, this is where I have an unfair advantage to create supernormal returns for you? So one is just that in itself is a game that you have to win. And that's not an easy, right? Like I'd say there just tenacity matters, sophistication level of the story matters. And I said tenacity because, a lot of people come out sometimes like, they'll ask me about fundraising and stuff. And people assume I also did that it'll be easier than it is. And you assume that, hey, I became a partner at Lightspeed within 10 years of immigrating here. Of course, people should give me money. That's not how it works. You go out, you get slapped around, you get a lot of no's. And if you can't handle the no's and then regroup yourself and say, I'm not going to go away, I'm going to make this happen, and then change that into action, not just the grid, but okay, where are the other intros coming from? Who else is you're referencing? Who are the references who will create an echo chamber around that LP that do this, right? So you have to kind of convert that grid into strategy and actions. So I'd say like a lot goes into it. I'd say storytelling, a network that can make a shit ton of intros for you, a network that will sing your praises in the back channel references to the LPs, that this is the fun to do it, and then bringing it all together, right? The storytelling needs to be authentic. People are smart. They are judging you. They have a lot of capital behind them because they're smart people. So you need to align that with the team you will build, the strategy you will execute, and how it all makes sense. Sourcing, picking, winning, helping. But I think the fifth thing people miss is the team you will build. And LP's confidence in, okay, you're talking about all of this. Will you be able to execute by getting the team? Okay, so that's LP side. Then the actual team, right? And there, I think culture matters. The picking of the talent matters. Ability to convert them. Like I think you had asked me last night about culture a little bit. Culture is not unidimensional. It is a multidimensional set of behaviors that come together, right? We at least think of it as first things first. We are a sports team. We have a culture of performance and ambition. So when I'm recruiting for Audacious, I'm looking for people who will be relentless, who will be killers, right? So that is first things first. It starts in the recruiting itself. But you can't ask your team to do something that the senior group here, MC, Sam, and me don't do it. They need to see it in our behaviors. It's easy to put that in writing. The relentlessness, if we are not showing on a difficult day, then what is the point of talking about relentless? Grit is only grit when it shows up on a difficult day. grit is easy to talk about on Twitter. It's very difficult to bring it on a difficult day, right? When the fundraising was taking longer for fund one, the three of us were there. So I think all of that needs to come together in a way that your team sees it and they can be inspired. So that's culture. But then there's a human side of culture, which is, like we have a internal doc called Foundation, where we wrote down our core guiding principles and our values. And, you know, one of the values that we wrote down, or the seven, I think, is always remember there's a human on the other side of every conversation. We put that in because we are in a driven business. Founders are driven, we are driven. It's easy to push each other so hard, but everybody has a family. Somebody could have a sick family member. Somebody could just be drowning in the stress that they are feeling. So we put that because we wanted to keep that in mind, that hey, while we want to be driven, we should remember that when we are talking to a teammate or a founder in our portfolio, we should remember there's a human being there.
Yeah.
And be mindful of that. So how do you then balance that? I think that's culture. So again, I think culture is not one dimensional. It's not easy. It's behaviors, and you have to live those.
No, that's amazing. I love that. I think, I mean, the detail and nuance in every sort of answer has been really, really helpful. And this, by the way, is almost like a personal masterclass kitchen, like everything that I'm doing right now.
I get a lot of thesis, so you're probably getting the summarize and the best version of it.
I'm super glad. But no, this is amazing. I think we have clarified how you got here, having started as, this Indian immigrant in a new geography, built a track record, very clear to understand what you stand for with Audacious, how you got here, the wins, the thinking around founders, the thinking around spaces. I want to now get to the conclusory aspect, and this is more personality oriented. And I think that would make for a great close, which is, what did you discover through this journey about you that you weren't aware? And I'm sure there have been many along the way, but if you have to summarize some for us, and the most surprising ones, right?
Yeah.
Things that you didn't expect to learn, but you have along the way.
I'd say the things that you kind of know but surprise you is the amount of psyche management that you have to do for yourself. Uh, Look, I've always believed that I'm ambitious. I've gone through some tricky times, almost got fired from the India practice and stuff. And, multiple other times I was like, wow, this is a tough day. But I think starting Audacious, what happened is I'd resigned. At that point, there was no COVID. And then when I was kicking off the fundraise, it was the first month of COVID lockdowns. No LP wanted to even engage because they were like, hey, this is not even an economic crisis. This is a species level crisis. Like, it was tough to think that, oh, my career might have been over because of one bad timing decision. Because what happens if this is just how the world is for the next 18 months or something? The no's you get, I think there is an element of the psyche management that happens, that you have to just get comfortable with it. I think the positive surprise I had was that I was able to scale myself pretty good at this. So I think I do good at psyche management of myself. The negative side is I still think I could be actually vivid. I would probably say I'm good, not great at psyche management personally. I think what I feel like I have become really, really good at is storytelling for Audacious. And that's the surprising part, because most of my life I did not think of myself as a storyteller. In fact, like, the Indian upbringing is about stay grounded. So if you wear too much of your ambition on your sleeve, people think you're not grounded, Uh, and so most of my 20s and 30s was spent grounded, because that was the mindset. But when you start a firm or any company, you need to tell the story. If you don't, nobody else will. And so getting great at that, otherwise the institutional capital doesn't get behind you. Otherwise the wins don't happen. Why will a founder bet with you?
Yeah.
Right? And so you need to bring that story to bear. And I think that probably I scaled well. I'd probably say there are, tactical mistakes that I regret not doing in the first year, or first couple of years, that we are constantly tweaking and doing better. I'd say, I'll give you the example of the tactical mistake. I feel like in my first in the first 3 years, we were basically a stealth mode firm. We felt like we had the backgrounds to raise the capital, have the network to get in front of founders, and have the salesmanship to close the founders. So we felt that, and we were decently good at it. But I think we could have played the air game better in the first 3 years. We didn't need to be in stealth mode. We could have, but the default mindset of being grounded was let the work show. But I think what happened in the last 5 years, and COVID emphasized that the world was already going in this direction with Twitter and everything. But during COVID, it just went crazy where the world became a very noisy place because everybody was online all the time. And so the world becomes a noisy place, you still need to stand out. And so storytelling online became more important. And I wish I'd done more marketing on day zero. And I actually openly admitted to my team that was a strategic mistake that I made in the first 3-4 years of the firm.
Sure. So that's so kind of you to share very authentically the challenges. Thank you so much, Nakul. I appreciate that. For the second last question, in a world where venture capital did not exist, what would you be doing?
I've actually thought of this question, so I've already answered. Not because you asked it. Friends of ours, we have discussed this question. So I have a clear answer on this. So I think I am most inspired by insanely great human journeys. So if I wasn't doing venture, I'd probably and if I didn't need to work for money, I'd probably just go around the world, meet the greats, and just maybe chronicle their journeys in books or essays. In that ways, I feel very lucky that I'm in venture because it is a proxy to that. I'm getting to witness some of these insanely great journeys and playing a very small role in it. But that's what I'd do. I'd probably go around the world and meet the great sports people of our times, the great scientists, the great entrepreneurs, and just chronicle their journeys.
That's insane. In one of the podcasts when I asked this, I had actually I had answered something similar where I study top athletes. But I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think athletes and like just entrepreneurs are the most high performing species, you could say. So I love that. That's amazing and great coincidence. This has been great, Nakul. I think for the last question, and could have done an essay on this, but I will tweak that question. This is a standardized one on all the podcasts where we go to a significant time in a person's life and I was then to summarize what they would tell themselves if you had the opportunity to. And maybe what might be a good point in your life is when you were making the transition to, let's say, Lightspeed, right? If you could go back to that day, 2014, sometime, you're deciding to move from battery to Lightspeed, knowing what you know today, what would you tell yourself? And by extension, what can we learn?
Yeah. I think this topic, we touched on this earlier on, but I'll emphasize this. I probably say to myself, the distance between good and great is insanely long. Try to find amazing people. Try to find acceptable people. Get to know them. Silicon Valley is one of those rare places where exceptional people open up their calendars if you reach out to them with some substance. So you don't need an intro. Of course, intros are great. You can cold email them. I would just probably say in those years, if I could have just fast track knowing all the insanely exceptional people faster, then I probably fast track my career even further. Because ultimately, you are a sum of the people you spend your time with. And they raise the bar on ambition, execution, ideation, depth. So just finding exceptional people faster.
Amazing. That is a wonderful way to end the conversation. Finding exceptional way people faster and the difference between good to great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nakul. Thank you. Such a pleasure. I think I have personally learned a ton and I love the nuance, the ambition, the storytelling, the clarity of thought with which you have shared everything. In all my conversations on the podcast this trip, I was wondering if I will get compelled after one to move here. And after all, I felt that this is great, but I'm not compelled. But this one will make me rethink that. But thank you so much. This was amazing. And I'm sure everyone watching will benefit largely from this.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.